find you a seat. Grab yourself a cup of joe and put up your feet. Let's talk about the latest news and all about true crime. We can make a difference if we put in the time. Good evening, come and find you a seat. Grab yourself a cup of joe and put up your feet. Let's talk about the latest news and all about true crime. We can make a difference if we put in the time. Oh, we can make a difference if we put in the time. Good evening, come and find you a seat. Grab yourself a cup of joe and put up your feet. Let's talk about the latest news and all about true crime. We can make a difference if we put in the time. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Happy Thursday evening. Welcome to a special conversation tonight. I have a special guest coming up to talk about Lori Daybell before she disappears from our conversation forever, finally. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, chat. Thank you, mods. Hit the like and subscribe, and also give a warm welcome to juror number 18 from her Idaho trial, Tom Evans. Tom, welcome in.
Thanks for having me here, Joe. It's good to see you again.
It is good to see you again. It's been a while and a lot has gone on.
Feels like it has, doesn't it?
It does. So you and I met at her first Arizona trial, the one for Charles Vallow, and we've had a couple of conversations, but you did not come down for the second trial for Brandon.
I watched it from home. It was a lot easier, a lot more pleasant.
I bet it was. You got to watch the exciting moments and you didn't have to feel your heart flutter in that moment.
Oh, yeah. And I didn't have to look at the people who I know were so involved in this and hurt by it. I didn't, at least not face to face.
Right. You know, that was something in this case too. So Brandon is not related to Lori by blood. Well, Charles wasn't either, but he was married to her. But he brought a lot of family there that I didn't recognize, but his family came to support him, and they filled up like 2 rows, like almost every single day of trial. Like they reserved 2 rows for his family every day.
That's awesome. Good for Brandon. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, it was really cool, and kudos to them for showing up almost every single day, if not every single day. Yeah,
that guy deserved that. He's nothing if he's not a really good family man, and so this was extra hard on him because it just tore his family apart.
It did, and he talked about that multiple times, like in his testimony on direct and on cross and on redirect. He talked about how hard that breakup was, like the end of June of 2019.
Yeah. I think he did everything in his power to try to hold things together. It just was not going to happen.
Yeah, and he confronted Lori about that, like directly on text. He's like, "Why are you trying to tear us apart? Like, why are you telling all these lies to Melanie about me?"
Yeah.
And then Yeah, exactly. Then it's kind of on Melanie that she believed those and she participated, to some extent. We don't know what extent. We know she's the subject of multiple investigations in multiple jurisdictions that came out in trial. So that's interesting.
That was really good to hear. I was unsure about that. I've asked the Idaho prosecutors if they were looking into her still, or, if she was under an investigation, and they would never answer me. So hearing that in Arizona, I don't know what's happening in Idaho. You probably know more about that right now than I do. But I know there's an open investigation into her in Arizona, which is great to hear.
Well, Ray Hermosillo would not comment on it, so that may tell you something about what's going on in Idaho.
Yeah, they just won't say a word.
Yeah.
They just got to look at you and smile, right?
Right. Yep. Oh man, what a trial though. That had to be interesting watching it from your living room or wherever your TV is or your computer. So I think maybe the first time I texted you in this trial was before Friday, June 6th. And I was like, wait till you see what's coming up next. Do you remember that?
I do. Yeah.
I was like, buckle up.
Yeah.
So let's watch that. Yeah.
Okay.
Dizzy, let's watch that. What happened? And you were on a 30-minute delay.
Yeah.
So I got to see it 30 minutes before you, but we both got to see it. It was wild.
It was awesome. I loved it.
It's coming up. I promise. There we go.
Sidebar again, discuss similar issues of if the defendant brings in evidence or testimony that she was a good person and no ill intent and those sorts of things, and specific acts of her being a good person, it could open the door to other things that she may not want the door open to. The state, the defendant, and advisory council were at the bench when we had that short 1 minute sidebar, but I don't know if anyone wants to supplement the record on that. Okay.
Just, Your Honor, that again, the state did raise any issue of character evidence under 404A and 405, that if the defendant opens the door and tries to advise that she is a good person, a peaceful person, a kind person, a loving person, any of those other types of things, that we believe that would allow us under 405 to then bring in specific acts, such as the murder of her children, her husband, and her current husband's wife.
All right.
Which would also be 404B that they withdrew.
No, it'd be 405.
Yeah, they withdrew it, but if you bring up 404 that you...
Then all 404B is in, or do we get a hearing on what 404B can come in? If I open the door, do I get a hearing? We stop trial and I get a hearing on...
Stop. We'll have a very short hearing, okay? If you're going to introduce how you have great character and good character, we're going to have a short hearing on what evidence that they can bring in to rebut that character, which could include being convicted of 4 murders. So
and would you like...
to your advisory council during the break. And
you don't need to yell at me either. I'm
at you, okay?
Yeah, you are, and you do not need to talk to me that way. I'm very courteous. I'm very courteous to you.
No, you have been nothing near courteous to me during the course of these proceedings. Talk with your advisory council about the rest of your cross. We're going to resume in 15 minutes.
Goodness. So what's interesting about that, Tom, is that that's a side of her you never got to see when you were on the jury in Idaho, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. She never said a word when I was on the jury. But, so the thing is, 99% of the reason that we're all watching is to support justice, support the families. But the other 1%, we have to be honest with ourselves, is entertainment value. And watching Lori do that was very entertaining. as much as I can't stand her and as unfair as it is, I know Judge Boreski is not taking anything personally. He's not offended by anything. He's just dealing with her however he has to. So she was taking it out on him, and I'm okay with that because I know he can handle it. And so
he did.
that was just one of those moments in the trial that I was kind of waiting for. Knew it was going to come at some point.
Yeah, and it was crazy to be there in person for it. Like your mind is like, is this really going on? Is he like really throwing her out of court live? I'm like
Right.
texting 43 people I know, including you. Wait for it. It's coming.
Yeah, it was nice to have a heads up because I waited that whole half hour wondering what it was going to be. Because I waited the whole time. Actually, the biggest thing that I wanted to see was for her to tell the jury that she was a translated being. I honestly thought that at some point when she felt like she had nothing else to lose, that she was going to do that, and then she didn't do it. She came close a few times, but it didn't happen.
Yeah,
I would have loved to have been sitting. I'm sorry. I would have loved to have been sitting in the courtroom, seeing the faces of the jurors when she said that.
Right. And she was given the door to do that. Like when the judge said, if you're going to compare yourself to translated beings, then I will allow it. And she actually complained about that on appeal. And the judge said, I probably shouldn't have said that. But I'm like, yeah, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Bring it on. But it never did happen.
No,
we never got to see. Yeah.
She was so close to opening the door to so many things so many times. And judge just like went overboard in protecting her from opening that door so many times.
Yeah, he did. To his credit, he did. And as entertaining as it would have been, it would have opened doors that we don't want opened. Appeals, and she could have then probably said, well, I am crazy, so probably good that didn't happen.
Yeah. Have you seen her latest motion for a new trial?
I saw that there's been like multiple motions, haven't there?
There was a motion for a new trial. Yeah, that was yesterday. That dropped yesterday. It was like from the day before. Usually takes a couple days for those to come down, but one of those was I was really, really sick and he forced me to come to court. That was one of her reasons. Yeah.
Well, and he did. He told the sheriff, get her here however you have to.
Right.
But
including up to and including force.
Yeah. Who knows how sick she really was. She was able to comport herself just fine, I thought, in court. And her mannerisms or whatever changed, whether the jury was in there or not. Did you notice that? Like when in front of the jury, she was one person and perfectly okay with getting up and saying whatever and talking and standing and walking. But before the jury was in there, she could barely move.
Right. And then all of a sudden, whoop, here I am. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Yeah. And judge noted that too. That's actually on the record. Right. He's like, I would like to note for the record that the defendant is perfectly capable of performing, naturally in front of the jury. And magically when the jury's gone, she does crazy things like what we just saw. She saves that for when the jury's gone. She never does that in front of the jury.
Right.
So we saw like the very first witness that the state brought on was Brandon. And he was a very interesting witness because he's obviously a victim witness. So he got to sit in there for every single day of court.
He's the one survivor.
Yes, exactly. Right. So everybody in Chandler that could have testified is no longer with us to testify about what happened in Chandler. But we do get to hear about what happened in Gilbert because he survived, and actually him surviving, it's my opinion that him surviving stopped this chain of bodies that they left behind.
Yeah.
Because if he had been successfully unalived by Alex, they would have been able to get the kids, they would have been able to get his life insurance money, and they would have been able to continue the dark and the light and taking care of the kids
Right.
like they did JJ and Tylee.
Yeah. It's really fortunate for several reasons that he survived that. And it's one of the things that got the ball rolling into the investigation.
Right. Yeah, that was actually huge because Detective Pillar from Gilbert PD, and it's funny that Lori tried to delve into like they may have had an inappropriately close relationship, and Detective Pillar's like, no, I give my cell phone number out to everybody. I even give my cell phone number out to suspects.
Right. Yeah.
So just because Brandon had it is not anything suspicious.
Yeah. He had two phones, one personal and one he used for work.
Right. And everybody got his work number. Everybody he dealt with got his work number.
Yeah.
And then Detective Pillar communicated with the Chandler PD, and Gilbert PD and Chandler PD went to the FBI together, went to Nick Balance and said, hey, can you help us with these things? And that was kind of cool to see Nick Balance come into court.
Yeah. I've listened to that guy, I don't know how, three times, I guess now. And it's important testimony. It's interesting. It's a little hard to stay awake listening to all the cell phone towers and, how they do all that stuff.
Right.
But that's important. And I think it's going to be important if there ever is a Melanie trial. We'll have to go through all that again, because I'm sure there are texts.
Yeah.
Maybe they're holding something back for that one. I'm hoping.
100%. I would not doubt it, especially since Alex's phone pinged off of towers that would place him near her house on the morning of October 2nd.
Right. Yep.
Like they pinged off of towers that would place him near her house, and then his phone pinged off of towers that would place him near Brandon's house.
Yeah, and she's more than just a member of the inner circle. She's family, and she had a closer relationship with Alex and Lori, and also with Chad. I mean, that had to happen fairly quickly, but her calling him daddy.
Oh my
That's a little
gosh.
weird.
Is that's very weird. I mean,
when she came into court in Idaho, in Chad's trial, she had on like Coke bottle glasses, and she looked like she was in disguise. And she came in with two attorneys, and she didn't hang out after it was over. When she was done testifying, she disappeared quick.
wow. She may not be able to disappear completely.
Yeah. Well, I probably shouldn't say, but if she's smart, she'd be working on that right now, maybe.
Right. Well, she shouldn't talk with Donna Adelson about what country not to try to flee to.
Right.
Like Vietnam. I mean, they may be watching you if you like book a ticket to Vietnam. Just saying.
Yeah, and other countries are a lot less, probably a lot harder to hide out in than here. We have a lot more
Right.
freedom here than they have in other countries.
That's true, actually, and so one of the people that I met in all of these hearings and trials knows a lot about the local side of things, and they have actually found where Ian and Melanie are actually living right now in the East Valley. They are currently living in the East Valley. Like they
All right.
went there, they drove to their house and they saw Ian like out mowing the grass or something like that. So they have like visual confirmation. If like this like casual civilian has visual confirmation of where Ian and Melanie are, I'm sure the FBI probably does too.
Right. Yeah. Didn't they sell their house, or isn't their house up for sale?
I've heard that. You know what? And I don't know if it's the house they're in right now or if it's the previous house. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Yeah, I've heard that, but I have no confirmation.
Yeah, I have to look into that a little bit.
Yeah. You can't, I mean, if you're going to do that, if you're going to leave your house, the FBI or whatever law enforcement agency is going to follow you to your new house unless you move to a non-extradition country.
Well, and by now you would think that they're catching on to all the tools that the police
Right.
have, right?
Right. Yeah.
Back in 2020 or whenever, 2019, back then, I think they were pretty clueless about what the FBI, even the Rexburg police, what abilities they had. But also, it's kind of, to me, like Alex shooting at Brandon from Tylee's Jeep, and then Brandon having been the insurance agent or whatever. I think it was the insurance agent that Charles used to insure the Jeep. Anyway, he had the VIN number and everything off of that Jeep. So
Right.
that wasn't very smart either.
No, and Lori tried to like turn that around against Brandon. Like, oh, you knew the VIN number. How exactly did you know the VIN number? Well,
Right.
because I researched insurance quotes.
Yeah.
How
Well,
did you
and
know
then-
what? How did you know what color that Jeep was? I didn't really, but because I saw it, I told
Right.
you. I told the police what color I thought it was.
Well, yeah, and they had the license number and everything off of that. She tried to make a thing out of the color, and I happen to have a pickup that changes colors in different lights. And I think that Jeep is probably that same kind of color where it looks green one time, gray another time. It's just one of those. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, absolutely. Trace in the case and I went down for one of the days of trial. One of the last days, we saw a Jeep that was that color on our way to trial, like in downtown Phoenix. And you could ask 5 different people what color that Jeep was and get 5 different answers.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I still don't know what color my truck is. They say it's red, but very
Right.
seldom is it red.
Right. So the first witness that the state called was Brandon. How did you like his direct and cross?
I thought Brandon did a really good job. He's obviously just a really upstanding guy. You can't get on the stand, especially for that long, and testify in the way that he did without being that kind of person. So he did a really good job. It was really thorough. His answers were thorough. I felt really bad for him when he was being cross-examined by Lori. That was hard to watch. I think it was mean of her. She was trying to discredit him. She brought up the pink pony or the red pony or whatever it was a couple times, and that's what she's been trying to do from the beginning with Brandon, is just trying to make him look bad in his world and hurt him that way.
Right.
And
And we have some clips from that. We'll take a look at some clips, just 3 like shortish clips of him, especially under direct, or under cross from Lori. I don't have one of the pink pony ones, but that was one that was objected to multiple times.
Yeah.
But yeah, here I like the beginning of this, because at the very beginning she gets the date of his marriage wrong. Like her whole thing with Adam and her whole thing with Brandon was, we've been family forever. Like, I know so much about you. And then she gets the date or the year of his marriage to Melanie wrong. Like right off the bat. First thing she does. The year's wrong.
Try to speak into that microphone. All right, the defendant can start her cross-examination of this witness.
Your Honor, when Robert Abernathy gets here, he has some photos and things I need to have marked. So can we stop for a minute when he gets here to do that? Okay.
Just have him go right up to the clerk when he gets here.
Okay. Mr. Boudreau, you and I met in 2009, is that correct?
I believe we met
in 2008.
Okay. Before you got married, right?
Oops.
Correct.
Oops.
And you got married in 2009. Is that correct?
I believe I was married October 31st, 2008.
Okay.
Oops.
But that's when we met. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
So we've known
It's
each other
not
a long
green
time.
chili chicken
correct?
enchiladas, but I mean,
A long time can mean a lot of different things.
Since 2008.
Correct.
Okay. And we had a familial connection. Is that correct?
Yes.
And we always had a friendly relationship, you and I. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say always.
Okay. Until what time?
oops.
Until probably end of 2018.
Okay. And we spent many holidays together.
We did.
And you and Melanie were married a little over 10 years. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I was there at your wedding. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I came to Utah to help you when your first child was born. Is that correct?
I'm going to object to relevance.
I'll allow it. Go ahead. Correct.
And I was there when your second child was born. Is that correct?
You were not present when my child was born, but
Well, I came to help and watched Braxy, so I was there.
you visited with you were with my family. Correct.
Why are you
Okay.
calling out the child's
And
name?
I flew in from
court?
Hawaii when Blake was born to help with the kids, and I watched them while you and Melanie were at the hospital. Is that correct?
Object again to character evidence.
Sustained.
Both children's names she calls out in open court.
I love how she keeps asking the
And I
question.
did watch the kids when Breezy was born as well. Is that
Your Honor,
correct?
I'm going to object and ask
Sustained.
to go into 405 soon.
And we went on vacations together, you and I. Is that correct?
Gonna-
Ms. Vallow, okay, move on to relevant information, okay? You've established you have a relationship with him that's a close family relationship since 2008. So go ahead.
And you came to visit me in Hawaii a few times. Is that correct?
And Your Honor, I'm going to object.
I'm just asking in the sense that it was him coming to me.
All right.
There's things that happened there that I'm going to.
Approach.
Okay.
She just keeps asking the questions, even when they've been objected to.
That's good. That's good, Dizzy, till the next one that we had tagged.
Objection to relevance.
Sustained.
She keeps asking.
And until you sent me that text message on June 25th that we read yesterday, you and I had never had any disagreements with each other. Is that correct?
I would not agree with that statement.
Neither would I. Like with anybody
You and I had
ever.
ever had an argument?
Can you ask that question again?
Did you and I ever have an argument?
And again, as the foundation of when.
I'll allow him to answer. You can answer.
I'm sure we had, I don't know how you would define argument, but disagreements.
Face to face, you and I? Before the June 25th?
Hold on.
That's all I'm asking. Just before.
It's like another green
Maybe
chili
rephrase it.
chicken
So,
enchiladas.
By the time we
moment.
met in 2008, until June 25th, 2019, did you and I ever have an argument?
Is there something you're looking for that you're trying to specify? And I'm not sure I can, that's a broad question that I can't think of a specific time where we argued face to face, if that's what you're looking for.
Correct. So you and I have never had an argument in our lifetimes.
I wouldn't agree with that. I would say that there have for sure been disagreements between us, but I can't think of a specific time that I could share where me and you face to face argued. I'm not a confrontational person.
He's not. I would
Okay.
agree with that.
You've known me for all these years. Am I a confrontational person?
And I'm going to object to character
So-
evidence under 404 and 405.
Sustained.
That's good for this one, Dizzy. One more at the end of this that I like. But she asks, "Am I a confrontational person?" Like, that's a dangerous question.
Yeah.
That's very, very dangerous for her.
If you can get closer to
Because
your mic.
she
It was a
is-
painful date.
Why was it a painful day? Why did that stick in your mind?
My grandfather was someone who was really important to me, and I was dealing with, sudden loss is traumatic. So I was dealing with that, and my family is the most important thing in this world to me. And so the dissolving of my family was probably one of the most painful things that I've gone through as a person. And that date is the start of the dissolving of my family.
That's good.
So
Thanks,
when you
Dizzy.
were talking with Melanie, was the focus of that argument about your
So I believe that he and Melanie still have shared custody of their kids too, right?
They do to this date,
Yeah.
like as of this date right today.
Yeah.
And many people, including me on my channel, have done semi deep dives and showing the body cam footage of her showing up with Alex to the
Yeah.
neighbor's house in Arizona, and her showing up with Alex to the parents' house, to his parents' house in American Fork, Utah,
Right.
you know, looking for the kids. I mean, it was wackadoodle.
Yeah.
But
I've watched that several times myself, and it's terrifying.
it is. That testimony right there, though, from Brandon was like particularly resonating with me, because he's like, that was the beginning of the end of my family, and that's what he cared about the most. And that's what Lori and Chad and Alex and eventually Melanie conspired to end, was his family. Like he
Right.
she totally destroyed his family and what he cared about most in this world. So the ability for him to get justice in this world means a lot to me, and sensing is going to be huge. I mean, we know what her possibilities are. We know that Judge Bereski gets to set it. We know that Judge Bereski has had like an interesting relationship with Lori. So, but it's 25 to life. I mean, that's all he can do. Conspiracy to commit first degree murder is 25 to life. So that's what she's going to get.
Yeah, that's what she's going to get, and that'll be good. Even though it's meaningless in terms of years she's going to serve. She's going to serve out the rest of her life in Idaho either way. But it's still, if people ask why are we going through all this, and it's important that we follow through with justice, and especially so for Brandon and others that are close to this. But it's important to all of us that we follow through with justice. We have to see it through, and I hope we don't just stop when we put Lori away, pat ourselves on the back, and say, "Job well done." Because there's still a lot of this stuff going on. There's still dangerous people out there who have the same crazy beliefs. And they're, you probably saw the Amber Alert. Was it yesterday or the day before that came
A
out?
couple days ago. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can talk about that now. Actually, we can go there. Dizzy's got that queued up to go if you want to go there
Okay.
now. I mean,
Yeah.
So you've written a couple of books to date based on Lori and Chad's trials, and you're working on a third one right now.
Yeah. And the third book, I just happened to be writing the chapter on the FLDS. I was actually taking a little break from it, and I was sitting in the living room when the Amber Alert came up. But that day was all day FLDS. And then that Amber Alert came up. And it gave me a lot of motivation, I guess, to follow through. And it kind of made me feel better about some of the things that I was saying that seemed a little crazy, but they're not crazy.
Right.
It's really happening.
Isn't that the way it goes though, with like these crazy offshoot cults? They make you feel crazy when they're the ones that are probably crazy. I mean, if you call me crazy, I wouldn't like fight you on it. Like I probably am, but I'm not crazy like unaliving my children and spouses or kidnapping my children.
Right.
Like I'm not that crazy. So
Yeah, or like people like Warren Jeffs.
yes, exactly. And still directing his cult from prison.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was having a hard time trying to convince people of that. I'm actually writing. They're not reading it yet, but I was having a struggle within myself, thinking, am I being convincing enough? And then that pops up, which is,
It's pretty convincing. It's pretty convincing. Yes,
Yeah.
it is. All right, Dizzy, go ahead.
This morning, authorities are looking for 2 children who left their home Sunday night and have ties to the FLDS group. Now, this story might sound familiar to you because The sister of these two kids actually ran away in January of 2023. Her name is Elintra Fisher, and we've covered this story extensively over the past 2 years. Well, now her two siblings, Alan Larand Fisher, he's 13, and Rachel LaRae Fisher, she's 15, left Monteview in Jefferson County on Sunday evening, and it's believed that they could be in Trenton, Utah. Although when I spoke with their mother, Elizabeth Roundy, I just got off the phone with her. She believes that they're probably in hiding somewhere else. That they probably went somewhere that authorities will not be able to find them. Now, this is Elintra Fisher. She is now 18, but when she was reported missing in 2023, she was a juvenile, and she is the sister of Alan and Rachel. She left her home, and her vehicle was later found abandoned at a gas station. And these children have ties to the FLDS group. Their father is an active member of the group. Their mother, Elizabeth Roundy, no longer is. She has left the church and has custody of these children, has full custody. So it is illegal. Whoever has these children, it is illegal for them to have them. And she has been living with them in Jefferson County. She tells me that on Sunday, she went to Bible study. These kids went down to the shop on their property to use the internet. When she got home from Bible study, the kids were gone. Elizabeth was very emotional on the phone. She was distraught. She just is so upset that her two kids have left. Now, the authorities say that they're possibly traveling in a gray Honda or Hyundai sedan with Utah license plates. Alan is 5'9", weighs around 135 pounds. He has longer, sandy blonde hair and blue eyes. Rachel is 5'5", 135 pounds with brown hair and blue eyes as well. The sheriff's office asks anyone with information about these missing children to call them, 208-745-9210. Or if you see them in Utah, just call the police. Wherever you're at, if you happen to see these kids, call the police. Elizabeth is, as I said, distraught, emotional. I don't know how to describe her feelings other than this is her third child. Well, she's now had 3 children who have left her. She has one left who's at home with her, and she is just worried that these kids will be in hiding, as this has happened with other families with FLDS connections, where their children vanish. They disappear in the middle of the night. It's unknown who picked up the kids. It's unknown if this was planned for some time. Elizabeth thinks that it might be, that this was obviously planned out because these kids knew to leave when their mom was away. And she is just working to get them back. So anybody that has information, as I mentioned, is asked to call the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. Here are the photos again. Alan Lauren Fisher, he's 13. Rachel LaRae Fisher, she's 15. Both believed to have left Monteview Sunday, and they could be in Trenton, Utah, where they previously lived, although they could be anywhere. They likely are in hiding. The children are possibly in a gray Honda or Hyundai sedan with Utah license plates. Again, Alan is 5'9", 135 pounds, longer sandy blonde hair and blue eyes. Rachel is 5'5", 135 pounds, brown hair and blue eyes. It is illegal to be housing these children if you have them, as their mother has full custody and did not give permission for them to leave. She told me that she has kept a very close eye on these kids for the past several months. They did attend the public school system in Jefferson County until Christmas time, and since then the mother has homeschooled them, although now with it being summer they weren't in any type of schooling. But hopefully these kids can be found. If they are found, they will be returned. They will be returned to her, to the mother in Monteview, to Elizabeth Roundy. We're going to stay on top of it. You can read our past stories about Elintra Fisher and her escaping. Now that she is 18, she is an adult. So legally, if she is found, she, doesn't have to be returned to her mother. She can do whatever she wants. But it's likely that she was involved in her siblings' escape, or her siblings leaving. That's what Elizabeth believes, that Elintra somehow may have played a part in helping her 2 siblings leave her mom and get back to the those involved in the faith. We will stay on top of it. You can read our past stories at eastidahonews.com. We have past interviews with
Kudos to Nate. Nate is always on top of it. But so that last thing that he said was really interesting to me, because the oldest daughter is now a legal adult. She's over the age of 18. So she can go where she wants to go. But if she's involved in convincing her younger brother and sister to leave, then she can also be charged as an adult in that.
This is typical of how this has happened in the past. An older sibling or a relative, maybe one of the sister moms, gets involved, and they're able to persuade the children to go with them. And then, they're off somewhere.
Where
Giving
where
his
is
nap.
somewhere? Where do they go?
Well, they used to go to Colorado City, but I don't think Colorado City isn't quite what it used to be. It's still pretty much under Warren Jeff's control. But yeah, there's a lot of places they can go. There's Monteview is just a little bit north west of Rexburg, very small town. I think the main building there is the Mormon church. But they wouldn't be there. But they've taken them somewhere. They have the FLDS is in Canada and Mexico also. If they have a way of getting them across the border, that's a possibility. Otherwise, someplace that we probably wouldn't think of in the United States. It's going to be hard to find those kids.
So Warren Jeffs went across the border to Mexico, right?
Well, yeah, but they have. There's actually an FLDS. I don't know, compound or whatever compounds. The FLDS is in Mexico and in Canada also. It's not just the United States.
So they've expanded the Mormon channel.
Yeah, not so much expanded. That's been from the beginning that they've been in Canada and Mexico. The FLDS. Really? Yeah.
What about the LDS though? That's what I'm saying. Like when you think of the LDS bridge, it's like Phoenix, East Valley, Mesa, Gilbert, Chandler, Salt Lake City, and then up to Rexburg, which is where the whole, Melanie and Lori and Alex and Chad thing happened. Right. Was, between those. But the FLDS like expands beyond that.
It does, definitely. And also the Mormon church, the heart of the Mormon church is right where you described. But it's also all over the world. It's huge.
Right. Yeah.
From the beginning there too, they've had their missionary programs, all over the world. And so right. Those kids could be anywhere. I hope they find them. And part of the problem with finding them is they probably went willingly. They don't know better. They've been brainwashed. They think they're going to be saved. And I think what Warren Jeffs has in store, if you read his revelation, he claims to have the voice of Jesus speaking through him. And he's telling his flock that the second coming and the end of the world, the apocalypse, all that is going to happen 5.5 years from when he put that revelation out, which I think was January 8th, 2022. So I think it works out to be August 8th, 2028 is when he's predicting the end of the world. And he's saying that if they want to be celestial translated beings, they need to be saved through him.
That sounds familiar, translated beings.
Yeah, there's listening to Warren Jeffs and reading a lot of what he says, I think Chad probably did that also, because a lot of the same terms, he got a lot of aspirations.
Chad maybe had aspirations to be that type of a leader.
I think so.
For his own group. Wow.
But it's terrifying because one way to interpret what Warren Jeffs is saying is that we all need to die, kind of Jim Jones style, before the second coming happens. If we want to actually, for the men, they get a planet of their own. And, so he's saying these things, and to you and I, it just sounds like total garbage. But his people are so brainwashed from the beginning, and they're so isolated from reality. He doesn't allow them to watch TV, be on the internet, even have toys. They have to dress a certain way. And if you listen,
he's in prison, right?
He is in prison, but he's speaking through. So Jesus speaking through him, and then Warren Jeffs speaking through his wife, his son, and so I don't know exactly how it happens. I picture them going to visit him, and he'll have a revelation, and then they'll pass that on to his followers. who are so horribly isolated and brainwashed that they go along with the things that he's saying. And
like they're
it's
waiting
always
on the
been-
edge. They're waiting on the edge of their seat for the next revelation.
Yeah. And they believe it is Jesus speaking through Warren Jeffs. He's the one that Jesus chose. And, you know, the things that he's done and the things that he's saying are horrible. And we can't imagine that people would follow along with those things. But because they're so brainwashed and so isolated, they do. So those kids, you know, their mother, their family was in the FLDS up until 5 years ago, and she finally escaped. And so those kids were living under that up until 5 years ago. And they're still, even though she's done her best to keep them away from all of that, the people within the FLDS under Warren Jeffs are really good at getting to people and finding ways of communicating. And, you know, they might have done it, who knows, they might have done it through the school or found ways. They probably did it through the older daughter.
Right. The older sister. Right.
Yeah, the older sister. Yeah.
Oh, it's disturbing. I don't know about any other way to say it. It's disturbing because how long has he been in prison? How long has?
Oh, I can't remember. I think it was somewhere around 2010.
Jeez.
It's been a while. Yeah.
That's crazy. And he's still giving modern day revelation to his followers, including kidnapping children from their mother and taking them off to who knows where.
And he did lose some followers. He lost a lot of the United Effort Plan is the corporation that the FLDS owns, that actually owns all the property, or did own all the property in Colorado City and Hilldale. So people would build a house on that land, but the land was actually owned by the church. So the church owned the house. And, you know, he controlled the police, he controlled the water and the power, and he owned the land that the houses and everything set on. So that land now has been put into a trust, but there's still disputes. It's still all disputed. It's still a real problem for people. Not too long ago, he actually kicked 20 very high-ranking members of his church out of the community, took their wives, took their children, took their property, and banned them from the community. That's how much power this man has. And these were all of his 20 highest people in his church. Because he wanted total control. The FLDS started out being kind of a more of a communal type of thing. And there was I forget what they called it, but there was a board of 7 men who ran it. But when Warren's father, Rulon, came into power, he slowly ate away at that until basically it was Rulon in power. And then when he died, Warren immediately claimed that Rulon was speaking through him. And so, you know, giving him all the power, and he took that power. He was the superintendent of the school. We were just there. I had to go see it all for myself. The elementary school where Warren Jeffs literally raped young boys with the parents' knowledge in a lot of cases, is still standing. It's not used anymore. There's a new school built right across the street, a new modern-looking building that looks all wonderful, and I hope it is. But Warren ran that school, and he beat the children, raped the children, and everybody in that community knew about it. And the parents would voluntarily give their children over to him. That's how brainwashed they are.
Wow.
It's horrible. And, you know, so we have this latest Amber Alert, but this is just the latest in a series. This has been going on for a long time. It's been continuous. So that's kind of what's been motivating me.
Yeah, that is motivating. So that's like what, 5 chapters in your next book? I mean,
it is. Yeah, literally
a
is.
lot. Yeah.
But when I found myself, so I ended up on Lori's trial, right, a couple years ago, and not knowing what it was about. But I'm sitting there because I've always been interested in this. I've always been studying it, and I was thinking, wow, this is really like, I feel like I'm the right guy to be here at this time because I'm so interested in this stuff and I feel so strongly about it. And I'm finding out, that everything that Chad and Lori did is tied right in to all of that stuff.
Right. And that's the problem that Kresha and I have with it, is that the LDS church distances themselves from the FLDS. They're like, that's a
Yes.
completely different organization. We have nothing to do with that, which is kind of the approach they've taken, although not publicly, with what Chad and Lori came up with. Like,
Right.
we distance ourselves from that, but they don't outright come out and say, we're going to use our resources to help find your missing kids.
Well, the split in the church happened like in the early 1900s.
Right.
So it's over 100 years ago that the Mormon Church and the FLDS, it wasn't the FLDS at the time, but they split, and because mainly over polygamy. And the Mormon Church did move away from that, but what they really haven't done is haven't changed what's in their doctrine and covenants, and that's what the FLDS uses. So,
Right.
it is a split. The Mormon Church is not responsible for the FLDS, but I do wish they would open up and talk about it, what the problems are, instead of just saying it's nothing to do with us. We don't take any responsibility. That's not the right. If they care about their own congregation, the children in their own church, they should be willing to talk about this. Is it more important to protect the church or protect those children? I think it's more important to protect those children than how good the church is in everybody's eyes.
If you disagree with that statement, that it's more important to protect the children, then I think the problem is yours, not ours. Because that should be number one across the board.
And they won't outwardly disagree with it. Like, nobody's going to stand up and say, "Oh, they're just quiet about it," right? They're saying nothing, and that doesn't help.
Right. It's not just about polygamy, people. It's not. I mean, there are more serious issues to look at. Like, I mean, if some dude wants to have 2 or 3 or 4 women in his life, more power to you. And if they're willing to go along with it, I don't care. Like,
I think that if it were just polygamy, even though it's illegal, they probably would still be going about their merry way and nobody would care. But, because underage girls, like, just reaching puberty, like, 13-year-olds, 14, 15-year-old girls being married off to older men and not being given a choice. And then having the young men kicked out of the community because they're in competition. So forget about polygamy. Let's just focus on underage girls being forced to marry older men, right?
Right.
We could legalize polygamy, and most people would probably go along with that, but we're not okay. Nobody is okay with the forced marriage of a 15-year-old girl to a 60, 70, 80-year-old man.
Nobody should be okay with it.
Well, yeah, I can't say nobody because their parents obviously are.
Right. All right. So we're almost an hour long. Dizzy has been posting links to your books in chat. So you did a book that was the first one. Oh, I think I want to share that. Give me a minute here. There we go. So you have 2 books in print right now. How long do you think it's going to take you, with all 5 or 6 chapters on the FLDS, to come to the publication of the 3rd one?
Yeah, so the first 2 books, I was on a really tight timeline because of the timing of the trials. The first one, Money, Power, and Sex, I wasn't able to release that until Chad's trial was over. But I wanted to release it right after that because I knew it would be important right then. And the second book, kind of the same thing with the second book. On this book, I'm not allowing myself to be on any timeline. It's a more complicated book for me to write. It's more of a challenge for me to write. The first one really flowed for me because it was just mostly about my experience as a juror. The Chad Daybell one was a little bit more complicated for me and probably took me a little bit longer. But this one is, I start all the way back in 1923 with Joseph Smith. That's where that book starts out. And I'm working my way all the way up until the present time. So there's a lot I do know about all of that, but there's also a lot I don't know. And I find out how much I don't know when I actually start writing about something. It's a lot harder than I would have guessed.
So we can expect a release in like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. little longer than it took me to answer that question. I don't know, maybe sometime next year, I'll say.
All right, good deal. So what I would like to end with is Trina K's rebuttal to Lori's closing argument, because Trina K did this thing where she kept the gloves on for most of both trials, and Lori kept pressing the issue. She kept pressing, opening the door to her good character, to I just want to spread love. That's what I'm all about. I'm a good person that just wants to spread love. And Trina K kept objecting to it, and Lori kept trying it again and again and again. And I think on rebuttal, Trina K came as close to taking the gloves off as anybody has ever gotten. So I'd like to end with that, if you're okay with that.
That's awesome. Yeah, she knocked it out of the park. I love to hear that. I can listen to it over and over again.
Absolutely.
Give a rebuttal, please.
Thank you.
All right, the state has the burden to prove the defendant guilty, and since they have that burden, they have the right to open and close the argument. Go ahead.
The defendant wants you to think that Brandon has it out for her. She has tried to insinuate that Brandon was involved with working with Detective Pillar for years just to get her. But what you heard was that Brandon has actually been working with law enforcement on multiple investigations, and that in fact Melanie Boudreau is a subject of multiple investigations. So again, as the defendant sits up here and tries to portray and paint a picture for you of her innocence and sadness and family tragedy, she again misrepresents what was told to you at trial. She tells you there was no plan, but she ignores the facts and the evidence of a very obvious long plan. A plan that started when she began, this defendant, Lori Vallow, meddling in Melanie and Brandon's marriage. And when that marriage was finally ending, this defendant continued to help her cousin, or her niece, Melanie. She continued to aid her. And what we see in every one of these bits of evidence is a core group of people. This defendant, her brother Alex, Melanie Boudreau, and Chad Daybell. The four of them working together. Do we need to have words, a video? No, we do not. That is why there is that jury instruction on direct and circumstantial evidence, because you look at what is going on here and it screams to you
a conspiracy by this defendant, by Melanie Boudreau, by Alex Cox, and by Chad Daybell to kill Brandon Boudreau. Every action you see there, the defendant would like you to look at them individually and pretend that they don't all point to what happened on October 2nd. But everything they did leading up to then shows you a way to cover up and prepare for the murder of Brandon Boudreau. When we talk about a plan and this defendant's actions, the most obvious and screaming piece of information is this defendant holding on to her brother's phone for days, holding on to the 480-351-9120 number for days while her brother is gone, with her Jeep, without the rear tire, without the back seat, with a gun with him. That is part of the plan. That is the assisting, that is the promoting, that is the conspiracy that this defendant wants you to pretend doesn't exist. We don't need words. We have actions that are obvious, and they're done by this defendant and her co-conspirators. The state asks you to look at everything together, regardless of how many people want to cry up here, regardless of how many people want to try to testify. This is not evidence. What is evidence is what was presented to you in trial, and each piece of that tells you this defendant is guilty. And so I ask you to find her guilty of the conspiracy to commit murder against Brandon Boudreau. Thank you.
Well done. You notice she mentioned Melanie a couple of times in there.
I was shocked at how often Melanie's name came up in both of the trials.
Yep. And she had Alex Cox's phone number memorized, the 480 number. She had that memorized. Right. She like recited that without looking down. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. And I like how she brought up the idea of evidence, because Lori talked in her opening about the evidence will show. Lori had no evidence. She's zero evidence.
Yeah, that had to have been devastating for the jury to be like, okay, show us some evidence, and then she gets to her chance to present evidence or testimony, and the defense rests without either.
Yeah, with presenting zero evidence, and then in all of her cross-examinations, all she did was, it's like she took notes about what the prosecution asked the witnesses, and then she just repeated all of that. Yeah, it was just bizarre. I don't know. The only thing I can imagine is that she is just going through the motions because she's more comfortable in the limelight in court than she is in her jail cell.
Right. And I think in the end, I think she gave up. Like, I really do. Like, she gets to, before the verdict even comes out, the judge is like, are you going to stipulate to aggravating factors? And she's like, yeah, I'm going to stipulate. And then, but what's funny is she claims in her motion for a new trial that she was forced to stipulate, which isn't true. The judge asked her, are you doing this voluntarily? And she's like, yeah, but she's a piece of work.
She's a piece of work. And I honestly think that toward the end, she was just thinking about how quick can I get back to Idaho, because the prison there is more comfortable than
she said it out loud. She actually said it out loud. Like, she says, can you just sentence me right now, Judge? Because then Idaho has 30 days to come pick me up. Like, sentence me right now.
So, but the thing is, so she put everybody through all of this for nothing, for absolutely nothing. And it's just so disgusting. I mean, all the family members having to go testify, sit there and listen to her and watch her. Horrible.
Well, and now we're gonna have to hear victim impact statements. Not have to hear. We're going to get to hear victim impact statements. And I'm telling you right now, if people are planning to come to sentencing, the public seats are going to be limited, because there are going to be a bunch of family members there for victim impact statements, because it's two trials. It's Charles's trial and it's Brandon's trial. So there are going to be a bunch of victim impact statements, like probably at least 30 deep. So that will leave like 15 for the public. So it might be better to watch. Right. might be
I'm probably
better
not
to
going to
watch
camp
it on
out.
TV. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
probably not going to camp out there. So
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes.
Right.
In her what do they call it? Allocution statement that she made at her sentencing in Idaho. That's when she totally went off the rails. And so maybe she'll do that again.
Right. Is that when she said Jesus knows nobody was murdered here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I was in the courtroom for that. And it was kind of cool because they did it in Rexburg at the old westerny courthouse there. The courthouse is over 100 years old, and all the furniture inside and everything is all over 100 years old. It looks like something out of a John Wayne movie. But it was cool for that, just because of the ambiance of that. And it was also cool because I was able to actually talk to people by then because I wasn't a juror anymore. And I was able to sit with all the police officers and family and everything and be part of that. So that was really a cool thing. Even though
wow. Did you meet Detective Hermosillo?
Yeah, I met him the night before the sentencing, or maybe it was the night of the sentencing, and we actually sat down and talked for a couple hours. So that was really cool.
A couple hours. I would love to do that. Like he has my utmost respect. Number one, from a ethics and morality and professionalism standpoint.
He was so
but
generous.
also for the. Go ahead.
I was just saying, he was so generous to do that for me, and the whole prosecution team too. They spent at least 2 hours just letting me ask them questions after the sentencing, and that was really awesome.
That is really cool.
All really good people.
Yeah, I was going to say he has my respect from how he presented himself in court in all three trials, but also for the fact that he just, I mean, he didn't waver in anything. Like in all of them, he was the same, right?
That's who he is, and that's a hard thing to be in his position. I mean, what he's gone through, and the effect that it's had on him. You can't go through all of that and have it not affect your outside life. And he has held that all together through all of this. And
Right.
I can tell you that it has not been easy for him. But he's
and
done
that was his rookie year as a detective. Like 2019 was his rookie year as a detective. And to catch that case, I'm going to call it a case. We all know it's more than a case. It's JJ and Tylee. And he caught that and he helped us solve that in his rookie year. And now in the 6 years since then, he has become the lieutenant of the detectives for Rexburg PD. Is just so respectable. Like,
not having any idea when it started what he was getting himself into. He had no idea what this case was going to lead to. And it didn't take long, though, for them to realize that they're probably not looking for missing children. So I think, and so then it got real for them.
Yeah. And that's something that they will never forget. I guarantee you they will never forget. They will never be able to distance themselves from it. Hopefully they will be able to adjust and live life beyond that after that. And hopefully that gives them some sense of justice. Her verdict and her sentence in the Idaho trial and her verdict and sentences in these trials. Hopefully that helps.
Well, and everybody's heard me say this before, but I'm going to keep saying it. When I went into that trial and I didn't know what it was, and when I was, going through it and the horror of it all, after it was over and I got to know the people and actually sitting through the trial, listening to them testify, turned everything around for me. After going through COVID and having all the, stuff on the news, all the horrible things happening in our country, and then to see these guys in our court system in Idaho working so well, it turned it around for me. And instead of being a horror show, it turned more into something I was proud to be a part of. Wow. Thanks to those people.
Right. Hats off. Okay. Well, we have more things to talk about because you have done a tremendous amount of research into the FLDS, and it just now for some reason became a relevant topic. Can you imagine that? You're researching your next book and then this pops up. How
Yeah.
crazy is that?
And not to say I'm glad that it's happening, because
No,
obviously,
right.
I'm not. But I've known that it's been happening, so it's not a surprise to me. And I'm glad that it's getting exposed. I'm glad that people are being made aware again of what's going on there, because there have been times when it's been all over the news and everybody's been aware, and then it just kind of fades away and off we go, and it's still going on. So I'm at least
Right.
glad that people are being made aware again.
Right. So we can help shine light into the darkness.
Yeah. Need to
All
take
right.
care of it once
So-
and for all.
Yes. So let's touch base again soon. Let's shine more light into the darkness and into these horrible things.
Yeah.
And make them better for everybody, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Tom, thank you so much for spending time with me and with us. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity, Joe. I
Yep.
appreciate you too.
Thanks, my friend. We'll catch you later.
Okay, anytime.
Take care.
You too.
Good evening, come and find you a seat. Grab yourself a cup of joe and put up your feet. Let's talk about the latest news and all about true crime. We can make a difference if we put in the time. Good evening, come and find you a seat. Grab yourself a cup of joe and put up your feet. Let's talk about the latest news and all about true crime. We can make a difference if we put in the time. Oh, we can make a difference if we put in the time. Good evening, come and find you a seat. Grab yourself a cup of joe and put up your feet. Let's talk